Oh,
Oh, can you hear me?
yeah, you can hear me? It's
Yeah, I
all
can.
good? All right, sorry, I'm in like a stairwell, so it might be a little bit boomy. Let me know
Ooh.
else I easily can.
Oh, wait, you're going in and out.
Yeah, hold on one second. Let me get on the Wi-Fi.
Okay.
Sorry about that. I'm in Europe right now, so like my going on like just the service is like a little bit tough.
Okay, wait. I don't know if I asked you this. Can you see that it's recording?
Yes, yeah, not a problem at all. All good. Is it it would be. Let me see if I have a. There's no Wi-Fi on this. Okay. Is it really choppy and bad? Or
No.
is it like kind of coming through now?
No, I mean, right now it's perfect. I think it's just like when you were entering in.
All right, cool.
Right
So
now.
let me know if it starts doing that again. I'll just re-say whatever I'm saying so you can get a clear shot of it or whatever, you know.
Oh,
Um,
now it's getting choppy.
wait. That was because I turned my brightness up. That was because I
Okay,
just turned my
okay.
brightness up. It won't happen. Let me know if it does.
I know
But
like
yeah.
when it like fully like turns into a video and it goes to my MacBook, it's good.
Okay.
So like
Awesome.
regardless if it's like I don't know,
Right, right,
it's
right,
good.
right. Because it's technically recording my end of it, and then that'll
Yeah.
be saved in the cloud onto yours. That's kind of smart of them.
Okay.
Awesome. Well, how are you? Thank you for taking the time. I really appreciate being a part of this. I'm very flattered.
Mhm.
So just want to get that off the bat.
I'm great. How are you?
Good, good, good. Happy. Couldn't be better.
How was tour?
It was fun. And I'm back on right now. So it just kind of like it feels like it kind of never ends a little bit. Um, but you know, I had a blast. Those are my some of my best friends, and I think we had a really, really good tour. It was nice because we worked out a lot of the kinks, you know, in the first one. So it felt really smooth this time.
Oh. Okay, two things. One, my teacher is super excited, and so she's gonna use all of the assignments that I do from here on out for her next classes in the future.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Congrats. That's
And
awesome.
then Avery wanted me to tell you hi.
Shout out my twin.
Yeah.
My
Okay.
twin.
Are you ready to go?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. Can you define what it means to be a member of the music industry, especially as the talent?
Um, I mean, funny enough, I think that might be the hardest one to answer. But define to you what I would mean to be in the music industry, especially as a talent. I mean, I think the best answer I have for this, which I guess maybe is like not directly answering the question, is just like at the end of the day, everything in the music industry, 95% of the work is done by people that you're not aware of, right? So when you're listening to your favorite album, watching your favorite concert, whatever, um, you know, the vast, and this isn't to take anything away from artists, but
Mhm.
you know, like that's really what I think of when I think of the industry, right? I think of like what makes this thing possible. I think of the people that are around artists that allow them to reach their full potential. So a really good tour manager and a really good producer and a really good, you know, session musician, whatever, they all sort of play that same role within the industry to produce the best art possible and bring that innate talent out of, you know, whatever artist we're working for.
Okay. How would you identify yourself as being Satchel in the music industry?
That I'm trying to still figure out, honestly. But my philosophy is really just like say yes to everything. Because like I said, you know, I I mean, I can be a little like I am a super fan of music. I always have been. I from when I was probably, you know, 6 years old and I got my first little iPod Nano and whatever. I've always known I've been obsessed with music and that's all I want to do and work in. And that's taken many different roles. You know, there was times when I've been drumming primarily as my role in the music industry. There's times when I've been fully behind the scenes and doing like stage teching and assistant tour managing and stuff like that. Um, but really, my philosophy is don't say no to anything, right? I view every single little job in the industry as a separate but equally important part of getting the entire product done.
Mhm.
Um, and I've honestly found the kind of the most success and had the most fun in doing things I've never thought I would do. Like for example, currently I am doing light design for this band called The Help. I'm opening for them on tour right now. I've never touched a light board before a day in my life, right? I just, Ernie recommended me, and Ernie, Laundry Days lighting guy. Um, and so whatever. So that's what I would say. I would define myself, Satchel, in the industry as someone who I will never say no to anything. I'm a super fan of music, but I'm also a super fan of the process. And everything that people think is lame and boring and nerdy, that's my shit.
Mhm. I
Is it
will
okay to
say
curse? Sorry, my bad.
that's fine. That's totally fine.
Cool.
I will say lighting is so hard. It is
It's
so
insane.
hard. Okay. Um, okay. What core values or ideas are important to you while being the talent in the industry?
I think what core values are important to me while being in the talent industry. I mean, I think at the end of the day, like when I'm in the position of being the talent, as opposed to being a part of like the production team or like the creative team or whatever, like I think the talent has a responsibility to let other people in. So for me, that sort of means just like, or I can kind of just use like for an example, random artists, a singer or whatever. When you bring in a producer, when you bring in a creative director, when you bring in these other roles, I think that it's important to, well, once you find the right people for them, to really let those people envelop, like I don't know, for lack of a better word, like really just live those roles. So I think the role of like an artist in the industry is really to be true to themselves, but also to sort of like let go of the things outside of their like current musical pursuit or whatever they're really trying to get done.
Mhm.
Um, because there's I've had a million like this. I mean, it's a little off topic, but I've had so many experiences, not not laundry day related, but just with random artists, like where they bring people in because they want help, but they are not willing to let go of the control of their own project. Which I think at the end of the day, you're going to release this music to the world and you don't have any control of it after that point at all, right? You releasing it out to the beast that it is, the music fans and whatever. So my philosophy on that as talent is to really just like allow space for other people to do their things, trust that people are specialized and find the right person who wants to, like I said before, really like work on like finding the full potential of a given like piece of art.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm not completely 100% sure. Did you grow up in New York?
I did.
Okay. So do you think your parents or the boys from Laundry Day instill any values or maybe warn you about certain aspects of the music industry?
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I mean, I will say, like, I am extremely, extremely blessed to have parents that are super, super supportive, but there's always concerns. I mean, like even from the most simple thing where, when I went to my parents and I told them like, look, I don't want to go to normal, liberal arts school or whatever. Like all I care about is music. And that 100%, brought up some questions where it's like, okay, that's fun and all, but how's that going to make money, right? How's that going to do blah, blah, blah. That's, the first off. But then, now I'm here luckily enough, and I'm blessed to be. But now that always, like, once you're in the industry, that raises a whole nother set of concerns. I mean, there's sort of predatory actors who don't have your best interest in mind. God knows I've signed so many bad contracts. Some of them I'm still under, things like that. I mean, and the only advice I would then just say from that is like everyone's concerns are valid, but it's not a reason not to do the music thing. Music is, the music industry, especially, is sort of like really beautiful, weird, like self-sustaining ecosystem, but there is like a lot of negative in it. I have a lot of amazing, talented, successful friends who are broke, because of bad actors and, not being, not thinking ahead. So that's sort of that's the best answer I could give.
Okay. I know some artists have bigger traditions or pre-show rituals they follow. Do you have any you came up with or saw and decided to use as your own?
Yeah, I've been to so many laundry day shows. I was at the first one, and I've been at the most recent one. So I've definitely taken a lot from their pre-show routine. With it being, a band and it's like a couple different guys, everyone has their own thing, but
Mhm.
I've definitely like sort of taken a bit from each of them. I mean, without like exposing anything, none of this is secret. Like vocalists tend to like try and take vocal rest and like, take a moment to themselves before going out into the concert and like performing and whatever. And I think that like I try, my best to find my version of that, where it's like, why is a vocalist resting right before a concert? They don't want to overuse their voice.
Mhm.
Understood. That's the best. The best version of a vocalist is one that has a perfect voice that's like ready. They warmed up, 30 minutes before, whatever. So like for my side of things, you know, it's completely different every time, but I kind of just need to keep that in mind. So for me specifically, I try and at least when I was DJing and opening,
Mhm.
it was sort of the opposite. I was like, look, I'm trying to have a party. It's the time of your life tour. You know what I mean? So it would be me and the boys kind of just getting ready, dancing together backstage, listening to the house music that we picked and whatever, and just trying to get amped up. So me personally, I always try, not jumping jacks, but I do like a little like
Yeah, yeah,
I don't
yeah.
know if it's coming through on camera, just
It
jumping
is.
up and down my shoulders and stuff, stretch a little bit, chug a water, might bring a beer on stage. Um, but yeah, I think those rituals are really important, and or not necessarily rituals, but just like knowing what you need to do to prime yourself to give the best show, to give the best performance. That's the most important thing.
Yeah. Okay. What characterizes the way you talk to other artists in the music industry, friends, or other older artists you've spoken to in the industry, and expectations of how to talk between and across genders?
Well, I'll answer them separately because they are. I think those are very, very important and good, but definitely separate questions. So in terms of like age or like like old music industry people that I've looked up to and whatever, I would say I characterize, and this is my philosophy. It might not necessarily work for everyone, but I try and position myself as a peer within conversation. So, I don't, and I don't mean this to say, oh, be nonchalant, pretend like you don't care about things. No, I'm not suggesting that at all. But I do think that there's an element to which when you position yourself as a peer to someone who you may look up to, who you may have thought you will never meet, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
When you put yourself on the same level with them, that's rare. The average really successful person is constantly having people, gassing them up, whatever, fanning out to them for lack of a better word or whatever. But also I think that it does something psychologically for your perception, right? Where like if I'm talking to Drake, whatever, random artist, but if I'm talking to Drake, multi-platinum selling artist, I'm probably not gonna like be, be glazing or whatever. I'm gonna try and talk to him like a man,
Yeah.
talk to him like a peer, talk to him like a friend. And I think that like that's sort of an important thing to know. Like a lot of people, especially the successful ones, have very few normal interactions um, throughout their day. So I kind of try to, I'm, I see my role, specifically me, like Satchel, I am very, very like social based, I guess. Like a lot of my job is like building connections, knowing people, etc. So that's the biggest thing I've learned is just meet people where they're at. You know, don't pretend like you don't know who a successful person is, but also you don't need to be at their feet kissing their shoes because at the end of the day, they want to meet normal, cool, talented people as well.
Mhm.
Um, so that's one side of it, and then on the other side with gender. Um, I mean, personally, I I can't really speak necessarily from experience. I think I've been lucky enough to work with groups that have, you know, I'm always around women like on the teams, even when there's not necessarily like women on tour with us or whatever. I think that like I've been lucky enough to been surrounded by a lot of groups that already have really good dynamics in place, just in terms of like what you would think of as a good social dynamic between genders. I think that's really important. But I think that there's a lot of things to be cognizant of, like in the music industry space. I will say, like, it is very heavily dominated by men.
Hmm.
And there is definitely a lot of bro culture and not inherently negative, like Laundry Day tour. It's like, oh, me and my brothers were all on tour, like blah, 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 blah. But I think as an artist, you always, or a member of the touring party, I think really what it is just like, look, if I'm on tour with 7 boys, right?
Hmm.
There's a way that I treat all of them, and when I encounter a woman or of any other gender, like I think it's just incredibly important, just like not I don't know for
Like read
anyone,
the
but
room.
just read the room and but treat people exactly the same. You know what
Mhm.
I'm saying? Like
Yeah, yeah.
I think without crossing boundaries, I think people don't want like there's the side of it, right, where it's like, okay, look, you don't want to be like offending other people, and obviously like everyone I'm with and everything I stand for, like we fuck the patriarchy, like all that kind of shit. Like we hate the male dominated whatever. The
Yeah,
women
yeah.
in the industry are like some of the most important people. But more so kind of what I'm getting at in a very roundabout way is like at the end of the day, like the some of the broiness, I
Mhm.
think at least I've seen from my experience, some of that is like not inherently like a male thing. Like it's actually just like the camaraderie of tour, having fun, like a certain like energy of like joking within. I actually don't think that if you have a good dynamic already within your crew, gender won't change any of that. That's my real answer.
How would you describe your personal communication style? Like, are you more straightforward, or what do you think?
It what well really what it is I have become adaptable, right? So I throughout a given day,
Hmm.
in terms of just like even in terms of just like power dynamics within a given day, I find myself in many different positions on a given totem pole, right? So when I'm talking to someone who is my boss, right, I approach with a certain level of professionalism, straightforwardness, but I'm also not necessarily super blunt, right? Because it's you have to. This is again sort of what I was getting at, where it's like I really do think like a superpower within the industry, especially if you're someone who wants to really just build out a large bunch of connections and stuff like that,
Hmm.
is being adaptable and being able to meet people where they're at. And again, I want to emphasize, I don't mean be fake. I don't mean, act, say things you don't mean, like whatever, any of that kind of stuff. But I do think that it's really important to know the appropriate time and place to say things, to yeah, there's that kind of stuff. And also, another thing I think is really important to state is this is art, this is music. There is inherently ego within all of this. And I think that there's ego within all of us, and that's not necessarily a negative thing as to why we do things. Like we kind of, as people who exist either as artists or people within the industry or both, like yeah,
Hmm.
I just think you sort of get what I'm saying.
Yeah, yeah.
Sorry, I'm not like the most articulate.
No, it's okay.
Um, yeah.
Um, okay. What advice do you have for people as someone who's in my position of wanting to be a tour manager and working behind the scenes that would make communication with the talent and other artists more comfortable?
Okay, well, specifically for a tour manager, I will tell you the best tour managers that I've had, and everyone I've worked with has been incredible. But the best traits I will say that I've seen in the tour managers that I've had is is I think like three main things. A, you need to be really, really good under pressure. And that's not necessarily in terms of like communication styles with other people, but I just think that that's really important. That kind of comes up within communication or whatever. Like if something is stressful, if there's something going wrong or whatever, the tour manager, it's important to really be in this like in between phase of like you're cognizant of how important this problem is, but you're actually not stressed that it's going to fuck everything up. You got to be level headed, strong, clear, focused. And that comes down to communication too. You know, like if there's a piece of equipment missing, of course the artist is going to freak out and might yell at you. And that's just the kind of thing. So being sort of like headstrong in that way. I would also say just like in terms of being a tour managing, I think it's really important to be more direct, to be a little bit less of like a tour manager needs to be extremely like sure of themselves. They need to know what they're doing it. They need to know what's going on at all times. It's very like type A kind of deal.
Mhm.
Um, but then like the thing I think that like that's all pretty obvious. You know, it's like a stressful job. But the thing I would say in terms of like communication or whatever is the moments when the tour manager gets to not be tour manager anymore,
Mhm.
when we have an off day and we're just going out to go bowling or like whatever, spend, you know, have some group activity on an off day, that I think actually is the most important moments in terms of I mean, you know, like if you ever had a teacher that kind of shows a little bit of their own personality and you're like, hey, wait, you're actually kind of cool. Like I kind of like, you know, there's a level of credence that you'll give yourself as a tour manager but if you're able to be super comfortable with people at certain times and very, very uptight at other times and knowing when the appropriate moments are. Because, you know, when Ernie's tour managing, you know, I'm equally grateful for when he's super locked in and just like working, 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 as I am when he's, you know, off the clock and goofy and we're hanging out. And that makes it, you know, they both play into each other.
Have you ever come across someone who didn't understand being the talent, and how did you deal with it?
I mean, not necessarily, not personally. Like, I can't really think of something off the top of my head, but I definitely just like in very minor ways have seen this with almost every artist that I've worked with, which is I think that there's I mean, this is like, and I don't think that there's really a way of like fixing this, but like I think that there's a very strong disconnect between artists and what they believe they can get done, they can ask for, etc. And so like there's the end of it where it's like you're way egoed out and you think you're better than everyone and blah 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 blah, and you're out of touch in that sense. But then there's also the other end where you're like you don't I'm saying as an artist like
Yeah.
don't think of yourself as you know as successful or as important or as blah 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 as you actually are, and I think that's honestly just as harmful. You know, I think it's important to like be as realistic as possible with where you're at, and because it's like look like I mean I can't really get into specifics on this kind of stuff,
Mhm.
but I really do think like most people think of artists either being chill or being super egoed out. But there kind of is that third option, which isn't great, which is they don't think they're as successful as they actually are. So they don't go and take what they deserve. Which is like sort of a weird way of putting it. But you know, there's whether it comes down to asking a record label for budget or shooting high for a crazy project that you know you would regularly think is like impossible. I think it's like it's important to know what you're capable of and the value you bring to the world. And I hate when artists underestimate themselves almost as much as when they ego out and think they're better than me.
Okay, how do you maintain relationships with those people that you say ego out? Like, what does being a friend mean to you?
being a friend, I'm a friend. Everyone, this gets into like a real, like social kind of dynamic thing. But I think that, like, in a weird way, like there's the side of it where it's like, look, my side of a relationship, I always give the same. I'm always giving me, I'm giving Satchel. But on the other end, I need to like maintain knowing that like the receiving end of that is always going to be different for every person. My relationship, whether, my relationship with my best friend and my relationship with my boss and my relationship with my mom, I'm giving the same version of myself to all those people, but they're getting completely different things out of it. So I think like the best advice I would give, which is I guess is a little vague or not really even advice, is to is to be conscious of that. And like as you learn people and get to know them, also get to know what you bring them. And I think in certain instances, with the laundry day guys, a lot of that is friendship. And what, whatever, like we've been friends forever. I just, I send them memes, I call them and we hang out and like whatever and things like that. But then there's other people who I would consider myself just as close to, but it's, the relationship just isn't really based on that. And I know that's not exactly what they need from me. So I kind of take a little more laid back approach and I let them hit me up when they need to, or I'll hit them up sporadically or whatever. So I think like that's the main thing. And it's vague, but it's really just like knowing just being consistent with what you give out into the world, but also knowing how that's received differently by every person.
Okay. What do you consider success, and have you ever had a feeling like that? If so, when?
Success, this is the hardest question. I've read through them all, and this is the hardest question. I think success is, for me, it would be security, like feeling like I don't have to worry about doing something new tomorrow, right? Like I think that, and I gotta say, that feeling of a fire being under your ass and you have to, you feel like you really just gotta like get something done because you have no time and like whatever. There is a value to that. As much as it is stressful and as much as it is like kind of like probably not good for your psyche to view life that way,
Mhm.
a lot of like really a lot of really good advancements in my own personal abilities have come from moments when I'm like stressed out and I feel like I gotta do something new today. I gotta make my mark. I gotta do something to make it big today. But at the same time, I would say, or, on the other end of it, I would actually say like the goal is feeling secure, is being able to look back on what I've done and feel happy enough in myself, happy enough in what I've done, that I don't feel stressed to do this art stuff. And I think one day it can truly be a hobby again. The same way, like when I was 6 years old and playing drums like trash and my mom couldn't stand it and whatever. So yeah, security. That's my main thing. That's what I'm um, focused on right now. And then the other part of the question you asked, have I ever felt that? Honestly, not really. I probably more than most people, just like I have this constant, like I'm a workaholic, like just a little context of me. Like I do not stop. I will not, if I'm on tour with Laundry Day and we're driving somewhere for a couple hours, I'm working on another project that I have and vice versa. When I'm with other people, I'm always working on Laundry Day stuff too. Um, but I will say there, there's a few moments, a couple silly ones, a really silly moment. Actually, no, I'll stay away from that.
Mhm.
The first time when I really felt like, wow, I actually have done something like kind of successful has been on this past Laundry Day tour, where I was given the amazing, insane opportunity by the guys to open up for them as a DJ. And from the first show to the last show, watching myself get better, watching the fans learn who I am, learn my set, and some of them become fans of me too,
Mhm.
whether it's 5 people who know my name now or 10 or whatever. Like, I think that was the first point, when I got off tour where I was like, you know what? Like, you actually deserve a break. And this is me talking to myself.
Mhm.
Um, And and it was really hard to actually let myself do that because I
Mhm.
was so focused on just like my whole psyche and my mentality on this whole thing's just never stop. You know, like I said before, I say no to nothing. I will take on every single job I'm ever offered until but then, you know what I mean? There's a point where like that catches up to you and like there's only 24 hours in a day and whatever. So I think the first time I briefly felt a little bit of that security was coming off of this past Tell Me Your Life tour leg.
Mhm.
And I'm incredibly, incredibly grateful for that.
I do want to like go back to what you said because it really stuck out to me because I feel like that right now. Um, about how like there's only 24 hours in a day and you have so much to do. Have you found a way to kind of like manage that?
Um, I mean, the joke answer is get an executive functioning coach, like get someone who's a professional at this.
Yeah.
But I mean, the serious answer, I mean, it kind of goes the same with anything. Like take baby steps, and and I truly, the thing that really helps me the most is like reminding myself that like I'm in love with this process. It's long and it doesn't actually have a lot of instant gratification in some ways that like some jobs do in many different ways, but like it's just baby steps, trust the process, staying act. Like I'm not going to say like don't work yourself hard. Like the music industry is like I can't stress enough. Like I and everyone else in the music industry is incredibly lucky to be there,
Mhm.
and we are there. I would like to think at some point because of like how hard we've worked. I really, really do think that it comes down to just like so to answer your question better, um, I would just say like know that it's actually this isn't like an instant gratification kind of thing. Like this is a long process. It's not pretty. The behind the scenes are 95% troubleshooting and stuff like that. But actually I think I've strayed a little bit away from your question. And to better answer, like you're more asking about like the feeling that like there's not enough time to do what you want to do every day, right?
Kind of, yeah.
And feeling like there's not, you don't know what to start with because you don't know what's going to like make you get big. I think really
Mhm.
then I would say like, and it's sort of contradicting what I said before about like putting pressure on yourself, but like you don't need to put that much pressure on yourself, right? As long as you're being active, as long as you're in some way making connections, even if it's just learning for yourself, right? Like this is, I even think like an interview like this, like look, when I was at school, I went to Berkeley School of Music, so I had to do a ton of interviews like this. You know, I'd like hit up someone in the industry who I knew who worked for some band, and I was like, whatever. And part of me was like, the entire time I was in school with all of school, I was like, like just taking up my time. Like, I want to go do some project. I want to go record this album. I want to go make this merch piece. I want to go on tour. I want to whatever. But it's like actually it's not as glamorous, but being in school is more valuable than being on tour or as valuable or whatever. You know what I mean? Like it's like these things that like may seem tedious, may seem as a barrier. They're actually like, I mean, it's like lame, it's cheesy, but it's learning moments. And like learning moments are just as important. So you don't need to be getting something done at 24 hours of every day. As long as you're learning, as long as you're like pushing yourself forward in some way.
Okay, because so glad that you brought that up because that's what I'm doing. I'm starting interviewing people that are in the music industry, and I constantly feel the need that I have to put something out, or I have
Right,
to constantly be like making a graphic or editing an
right,
interview or booking it. It's just
right.
a million things are going on at once.
So what I will say is that is what I believe that what you just described is a new version of a phenomena that's always kind of existed within the music industry, but I hate this new version, and it is so. I think it's the fault of like social media and phone addiction and shit like that, where it's like, and and I'm saying this from someone who has this so deeply instilled in them. I hate that I have it instilled in me, but like I go back to it, like the instant gratification thing. Like I always think I need to like do a graphic and finish it, right? Like I need to put something out. I need to post something on my story. I need to do whatever. Like I need to send something to laundry day, whatever it is. Like that's bullshit. Um, and not to say that it's not valuable to get shit done, to do a graphic one day and post it the same day, like fucking awesome. If you're able to do that shit, always do it. And honestly, that may be the kind of thing that just like helps keep you motivated and whatever. Then if you're saying like I want to make a graphic every day and post it every day, do that. I'm getting a little sidetracked, but I do really think that like the pressure that it feels like you need to put something out, something new out every moment, that's silly. Back, I mean, even 10, 15 years ago, like artists would take 3-year breaks between albums. That's not weird, right? It wouldn't be, they're not publicly doing anything in between that. They're
Yeah.
not, you know, like they're before this like social media, like just mind switch that everyone's had in the last like 10, 15 years. Like, and I'm saying this again, I'm 23 years old. I didn't really live outside of this. I've never, this is all I know. But I do know from older people that I've talked to and from just like studying music and whatever, like the speed of things and the pressure of everything going on all at once, that's new. And I actually don't think that it's helpful for like what what you and I know you, I can tell you know this, like learning is like the most important thing, right? Like interviewing people, whatever. Like I'm everything I'm saying, I heard someone older and smarter and more successful than me say at some point. So it's just like those kinds of things are that's where the value is, right? Like you might get 100 likes, a couple hundred likes on something you post on Instagram, but at the end of the day, like leave space for yourself to go ghost. You don't need to be putting an output out to other people for what you're doing to be valuable. No one needs to know. You could be doing graphics and never put them out. That's cool. It's still valuable. 80%. That's no, that's actually a really safe estimate. 80 to 90% of the music Laundry Day makes, you'll never hear. It's never going to get put out anywhere, right? That doesn't mean it's not valuable. It's like we're learning things. We're you know, every single thing you do, and I can't stress that enough. Everything you do is a learning moment, and that's just as valuable as the putting shit out.
Okay, that actually helped me a lot. That was actually great advice. Okay. Okay, I think we kind of answered the next one, which is what role do you think the media plays? Um,
Yeah, I would say mostly negative in my point of view. I mean, I think like I will say on the other hand, like there's a reason why social media exists, right? Like there's the and the internet and all of it. Like there's so much good that it brings. There's so much less of a barrier to entry now. You know, like people are able to blow up on Instagram in a way that like you kind of had to, back in the 80s, you had to play a bunch of shows and get a local buzz and then beg a bunch of record stores to have your CD and like like whatever. Like I love how much easier it is for people to be heard and be reached and reach an audience. But I would say overwhelmingly I think like social media and just like internet culture media as a whole has made good art more difficult because you're required to put out an album every year and you're required to put out something that's going to have a 15-second loop that can loop forever on TikTok and etc. Like that is all. I mean, I'm going to use a pretty harsh word, but these are like perversions of art. Like, if you're making a song and you're doing it with a TikTok hook in mind, I truly believe that is so far from like the initial like point of all of this.
mhm.
It's like I kind of hate it. So that's my opinion on the media of the industry. But I'm not going to discount like how amazing it is that like you can download, you can get GarageBand for free and make fucking industry standard, sounding music. Like that's amazing.
Have you ever felt you've been discriminated against when being open about your career, feeling like you weren't being taken seriously?
Yeah, I mean, I think discriminated is probably a hard word, but I can absolutely see where many people have probably dealt with something like that. But I think like on a very low basis, like there's a glamour to being the talent to being the artist.
Hmm.
Um, and then if you keep going down the line, there's a lot of jobs in the industry that have like a similar glamour. And then, so it's like the, let me know if this tracks, but it's like in my head, when I, started working in music and whatever, I was like, okay, the top honcho, most important person is like the artist and whatever. But then underneath that, like, there's like the manager, that's really cool. Well, the producer, that's really cool, like blah, blah, blah. But it's actually like I've learned from being every single random role in the industry, whether it's a high up one, whether it's low, low, low,
Hmm.
it's if you're like a good worker, you're all working the same amount of hard, and it's all the same level of importance to to the project or the product or uh, the performance or whatever happening. So I think like actually the best thing I could say is like I personally had discrimination that I think was, instilled upon by, I don't know, whatever, TV, movies, whatever, internet bullshit. But like, I definitely like, you know, I've turned my nose up at opportunities before because it didn't sit high enough on that glamour level, that glamour meter or whatever. Um, and I think like that's probably my biggest regret in working in music is thinking that a stagehand is less important than a creative director or an artist or something like that.
Do you think that's why, like, now you're like saying yes to everything?
I mean, I think yeah, yes, that is why. I mean, really what it is it's I the opportunities compound upon themselves. So like when you like saying yes to a job that you might not really necessarily think is 100% your passion, like the nature of the industry, things move really fast. Tour was a month long, right? Like so like and Laundry Day knows this. Like when that first tour when you saw me.
Hmm.
What you said you saw me in SF, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, like I was doing stagehand work. Like you know, I'll be super honest and open right now. Like that was not my first, that was not my first choice, right? Like that wasn't something that I thought of as like super glamorous. I was on the stage, I was sweating, I was, doing physical, like it's a lot of physical labor and like whatever. And but these opportunities compound upon themselves. And the best example is, I mean, this is a little less linear because like I have been in many random positions with Laundry Day forever and I've been high and I fill in wherever I need to. But the best example is like within 6 months with one band, I went from being their stagehand and creative director to being the opening act, right?
Hmm.
So I think these and on the other end there's so many countless opportunities that I've gotten just for the sake of like knowing Laundry Day or being around Laundry Day, which actually, so let me take it to a different artist because this isn't even that good of an example because I do have like with Laundry Day I have more of like one of those like glamour like higher up positions, but with this group I'm with right now, The Help. um i I've been on 2 tours with them right now. This is my third tour. um And when I started, I was fully just stage tech, really just stage hand. I was like an assistant, just fill in wherever. And the reason why I did it was partially because The Help is actually one of my favorite bands of all time, but also partially because I was just like, whatever, I need the money. But there was always like a part of me. I was like, I don't want to fucking I, look. You and I both know, and this is no hate to anyone who's doing this, but like, I'm not getting in the industry. I don't want to pick up boxes. Like, that's not why I'm like, doing the music stuff. Like, I didn't do this to pick up, a giant,
Yeah.
uh, microphone stand or whatever. But on the next tour that I did with them a month later, I became the lighting designer because there wasn't anyone to do lights. And I had no idea how to do that. I had
Hmm.
to call up Ernie and have him give me pointers and just wing it and learn during sound check and whatever. And now on the third tour I'm on with them, I am lighting designer and opening up for them. So yeah, those that sort of like that is why I am so serious about like turn your nose up at nothing. Everything is important. I also just think it's important for like people to respect everyone and know what how hard everyone else is working in their roles,
Yeah.
right? Because it's like it's very easy to get caught up in your own shit. Like
Mhm.
everyone's job is so hard. Everyone's job is constantly requiring them to do things that is not in the job description that they've no idea how to do. So it's really easy to get caught up and think that like and you know just feel as if like you have the hardest job and like da da da.
Yeah.
Really, at the end of the day, everyone's thugging this shit out.
Mhm.
Like we're just trying to make it work.
What is considered taboo or inappropriate in the music industry, and how did you learn this?
Um, I think there's this is sort of what I was getting at before with how I speak to artists, like or you know artists of different statures and whatever.
Mhm.
But I think like I did learn that it is a little bit I mean, I get honestly, sadly, it's a little bit taboo to express fandom of another artist.
Mhm.
Like it's not in a bad way, but it's just like sort of what I was saying before. Like if in your first experience meeting an artist or a person or whatever, you are fanned out and like and whatever, like that kind of thing is taboo. Not taboo, but it's just like it's not loved by many people. Like they like people love having fans, but like when it comes to like when they're going out on an artist or a you know manager or whatever important person, like when they're going out, they kind of they want to have normal human interactions. They don't want to have someone who just you know. So I think like that's an important thing. I think the other thing is just like I mean it's just general like social stuff, right? Like don't overstep. Like I don't know. That's a really terrible answer. I think the main thing really that I could say that is of importance or interest and probably wouldn't like it doesn't really make sense right off the bat, but it's almost like you sort of have to hold your cards close to an extent when it comes to like artists and stuff. And you know, the guys I'm touring with right now, they don't know that I've been following them since middle school. I've been obsessed. I probably found their address on Google at some point. You know what I mean? They don't know that. And there's going to be a point where, of course, they're going to know that. And
Yeah.
slowly I'm like, yeah, you know, I drop little bits, but I do think like there's an importance to it. It's like, you know, I'm here because they they don't need to feel like uncomfortable around me. Like I'm a super fan, but I'm also like, I want to be a peer of theirs. So I am.
Mhm.
And, you know, I got off track, but yeah, that's sort of my answer with that.
Okay, so I feel, first of all, I don't think I could have picked someone better to do this interview because you've worked, like you say yes to everything, like you said. So, what is your favorite part of your job, or what part of working in the music industry do you feel the most pride in?
Um, hmm, it's a really good question. I
And you can
I
totally
feel
give me both.
proud. I mean, it's really it's tough to say. I mean, like I think I feel something different from everything I do, but like the most the main thing I feel proud of is like I'm able to sustain myself off of this, right? So just on a very general like macro sense, like I didn't think I would be lucky enough to be in this position this quickly, but I am. You know, I'm able, like I the I've spent a really large portion of my life splitting my attention between my creative endeavors and my job or school and blah 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 other things like that. And so I will say like the biggest thing has been like that I feel prideful in is that I'm actually able to fully 100% give myself to my creative endeavors or if I'm assisting an artist to their creative endeavors. Um yeah, would you mind repeating the question again? I feel like I didn't answer it all that good.
What is your favorite part of your job? What part of working in the music industry do you feel the most
Right.
pride in?
Right. I mean, then, and so that was sort of answering the pride part, but my favorite part of my job is the people I've met. For sure, for sure, for sure. Um, like music. like sort of any like creative collaborative project, but music especially, um, there's so many like there's so many things surrounding it, right? Like in terms of, merchandising, you're gonna be dealing with a bunch of people who know a shit ton about fashion, right? And that's a certain kind of person, and it's fun. And when you get big enough, you're gonna be doing music videos with real cinematographers and like that kind of thing. And so less about like the clout of it all and like whatever knowing really cool people in every industry, though that is actually cool. Um, my favorite part is just I have really been able to meet so many different types of people. And again, I'll reiterate, I am such a super fan of everything that goes on around music,
Mhm.
whether it's merch, videos, blah, blah, blah. So I love meeting those kinds of people behind the scenes who share different aspects of myself because I really do feel like I love music. I love fashion. You probably know I do laundry days merch and whatever. So like I love like meeting with fashion people who have know nothing about music and whatever. It's like I'm just that is the most rewarding part of the job.
Okay, so this question was supposed to be before you went on tour, but how do you like to spend your downtime when you're not working?
I mean, I don't. That's the answer. I don't not work. I I mean, I hang out with my friends, but I try and make that work related
Mhm.
because of what you were saying before. I actually don't necessarily think this is positive or this should be replicated by anyone.
Mhm.
But yeah, I don't know. I couldn't tell you like I don't really take I don't know like a day. I can't really take days off. Like it doesn't really like it doesn't feel correct. I don't know. I mean, in my free time, I love DJing, but like technically that's my job because like I get paid for it, right? So it's like it's kind of hard to say. I mean, I really the answer is I have been lucky, and I keep stressing this. Like it's a blessing and luck, and because of hard work and whatever. I won't discount that on myself, but it's really amazing that I don't really want to do anything other than my work.
Mhm.
Like and when there's many different aspects of that, and I think part of it is because I do so many random things that like my ADHD brain doesn't get bored on anything.
Mhm.
Um, but I yeah. I honestly don't really do much outside of my work, and I love that I like that.
Mhm. Okay. Is there anything you're hoping to reach or experience next, whether it's in music or just in life, that feels like a big milestone or goal for you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm working on my own musical project right now that I have put off forever because of like that instant gratification stuff that we're talking about, where it's like I've spent years wasting amazing demos. I'm telling you, so good. No, I'm joking. But I've spent years like for lack of a better word, like wasting my time and you know diddling around, like doing whatever because I wasn't confident enough that I would initially have whatever barriers exist between me and putting out my own creative shit. But I'm sure you understand. It's like
Yeah.
it's scary to put it out, especially when you're surrounded by people that are super successful, because there's sort of like a pressure for yourself to live up to those standards. I was I was like 15, when Laundry Day hit their first like million streams on Spotify. So like while that was equally inspiring to me, but also a little bit paralyzing. And not singling them out or anything, but like it's I've I've spent a lot of time, working on other people's projects, which has been incredibly valuable to me and been such an amazing experience. But a lot of that has come from fears of the unknown and things not working out and blah blah blah. And I have been I'm trying to sort of like the fake it till you make it. Like I'm gonna just live life confidently, and I hope it inspires more confidence in my work with myself and my audience and whatever. But yeah, ongoing. I I'm going to be putting out my own projects and focusing a little bit more on the satchel of it all. I mean, I've loved working for other people, and I always will. Doing random stuff. But I think the last bit of that puzzle, which I've always been putting to the side, is doing my own projects.
Okay, this question is kind of long, so I'm gonna cut it short. As someone
Cool.
who's also taking a mass communications class, are there any big industry moments that still live in your head? It could even be moments in the media or physical media that you saw as a child that stuck out and made you want to pursue music.
Ooh, really awesome question. I mean, for me, the for me, um, one of the first a lot of what I would do in terms of my own musical side. I mean, I don't know how familiar you probably are not, and I wouldn't expect you to be familiar with my own music and like what I do, but aside from like the laundry day kind of stuff, but I I'm in love with electronic music. And by that I don't mean like actually like the genre electronic music, but I love being on my computer making weird sounds and whatever and stuff like that. And I remember being, I think I was probably like 10 years old when it came out. Skrillex dropped his first like dubstep EP. And it was hilarious. And listening back to it now, it's like unlistenable. But I was 10 years old and I was, you know, hopped up on Annie's mac and cheese and I was obsessed with Skrillex and these weird sounds. Because, like up until then, I really had only like, I was familiar with like synthy sounds and electronic and whatever, but like to truly just like a whole world that exists electronically, that was important for me. But then really what the thing that like super like I can pinpoint direct parts of every part of my day, every part of my job, every whatever, that like it's Brockhampton. It's literally just Brockhampton. Like that's the whole reason why. And Laundry Day said this, and they would say it too. But it's Brockhampton and Odd Future before that. Like I grew up watching Odd Future. I grew up being obsessed with Tyler the Creator, Frank Ocean, Earl Sweatshirt, watching them all do their own thing afterwards and be successful in their own creative endeavors extra musically, right? Like Tyler the Creator is like a clothing brand that's really good, and he has his Converse steel and whatever. And even, until recent times, obviously don't stand by anything he's done recently, but Kanye, like his moments, I was such a little hype beast as a kid.
Hmm.
And so that to me actually was really, really important in like learning about the extra musical stuff, right? Like I was equally a fan of Kanye and his music, or no, actually rather not even equally. It was like I was a fan of Kanye and his music, and he could have put out the ugliest shoe ever. I don't even know if I like those shoes to this day, but I wanted those Yeezys so bad, right? But and so that was like a very telling thing for me, like learning on like how that sort of
Yeah.
connection between music and extra musical stuff. But I will just say like the main thing, the reason I do everything I do is
Hmm.
because of Odd Future and then Brockhampton.
Okay, first off, I'm so familiar with your music and I love Glitz.
I'm glad.
It's on my playlist. I love it.
I'm
Okay.
glad. Thank you.
Finally, if you could go back in future to give your younger self advice about the music industry, what would you say?
I would say I would say don't stress out. Or like a healthy level of this is like a very long roundabout. Let me make sure I like get my words right.
Hmm.
Like anxiety in and of itself and like stress or whatever, these are like defense mechanisms. Or at least I see them as. And they are ways that we learn to like work with the stimulus around us. And there's moments in which that's actually a valuable thing. When I have 30 minutes to get to the airport, I need to be stressed, right? Like that's actually it's super valuable for me to be stressed then because then I work faster, harder, whatever. And I think that that's something I think a lot of the time I'd like focused on just that, just being like, look, like if you're using stress well, like you can turn it into a superpower. It doesn't have to be like a negative thing. It can be the invigorating thing. But my advice to my younger self would really just be like, don't, you don't, it doesn't, stress doesn't need to consume you. And not every, like, yes, there's an extent to which like every day is the next step in your career or whatever that quote is, but also like give yourself grace. Like I said before, you don't need to be putting out something constantly for what you're doing to be valid. And it took me a really long time to learn that. And even now, you know, I sit behind a computer and I'm like, I want to make music, and my mind instantly goes to like, what's the fastest beat I can make that's good and fun and I can put it out and sell it? Or like I can start DJing it immediately or whatever it is. And it's like I have to like actively give myself sessions, like music sessions where I'm like, I'm gonna make something now just for myself.
Mhm.
That this will never be out there anyway. This is not a collaboration. This is not a whatever. This is literally just like I'm gonna play random shit and like whatever. That is so valuable. And I struggle with it so much to this day, to the point where I literally have to force myself to do it, to feel comfortable doing something without, you
Mhm.
know, thinking I'm gonna put it out there. But that's the main thing. Like there's no need, there's just be cognizant of the stress that you have. Kind of, I'm sort of almost speaking to you because you've expressed, I'm like taking what you expressed to me and I'm like, whatever, but like what you expressed to me about, you know, feeling like you need to do something every day and like blah, blah, blah. There's an extent to which that's a positive thing and can be helpful. But when it starts to paralyze you, when you start to feel like the day isn't an opportunity, but it's scary and daunting, that's when the anxiety is not helpful anymore. And that's when you have to like, you just have to hard stop and tell yourself, like, this is not productive.
I'm scared it's gonna like lead to like burnout, and I'm not gonna find this balance.
Right. Right. And I think like, I think that's actually a really big concern. Like, funny enough, like burnout is kind of the main thing that like stops projects from happening. And you know, it's like, yeah, yeah, that's really that's it.
Okay, I do have some personal questions
Yeah.
that I'm just curious about. Okay, what are your top four favorite movies?
Ooh. Ooh. Wow. Okay. I love I love Kids. It's a movie by Harmony Korine. I love Train Spotting. Um, I love Catch Me If You Can with Leo DiCaprio, like young Leo. That's actually like one of my favorite movies. And I would say my fourth one, I'm gonna get five, sorry. My
Okay.
fourth spot is a tie between Napoleon Dynamite and Ferris Bueller. I am I have such a sweet spot for those like early 2000s like cute comedies. Um and yeah, there's like a lot of there's sort of nostalgia there for me, but also it's just like it was such a specific era of film and comedy. And I mean, I'm sorry, I need comedy in my movies. I'm like I'm an idiot. I need to laugh.
Okay, who are your top four favorite musicians?
Um that's gonna be really hard to say. I would say before I say anything, I need to preface if I'm ever asked this again, I'm going to say something completely different. And that doesn't mean that these four artists like aren't that, you know what I mean? This
Yeah,
is just like right now, you're asking me right now in the stairwell in the middle of Berlin, Germany, whatever.
yeah.
Like I, my favorite, I mean, it's hard to say. I would say Frank Ocean is someone who I like really, really respect and look up to. Especially just in terms of workflow. And like he's the perfect example where it's like no one, I mean, of course, people are begging him to release new music and whatever, but like no one's hating on him
Not.
for not really like you know what I mean? Like he could have just put out Blonde and like literally went ghost, never did anything again. And it's like no one would think of him as a burnout loser. Obviously, we would all be like, "Give us more music, Frank." But it's like he did his big one, you
Mhm.
know, for lack of like a better for lack of a better term. Like, um, so Frank Ocean, I really actually do respect him for being as reserved and being as particular as he is. I don't think I would ever necessarily do that myself. You know, I love I love putting out music, and I would never go on like an 8 year hiatus or whatever. But I would say like him being so talented musically, but also so grounded on like the personal level. I've like always really looked up to that. Trying to think, in terms of like musicians and whatever. This isn't a musician, but Rick Rubin is someone who I've always really, really, really looked up to. I'm sure you're familiar, but like insane record producer, started Def Jam, produced a ton of records, and I read his book a couple years back, and there was like a part. Actually, I don't even remember if this was in his book or if it was in an interview, but there's a quote from him generally about like the role of a producer is making artists feel comfortable. And I really like, I love that. I love hearing that, where it's like Rick Rubin doesn't play any instruments, right? He doesn't make any of these beats. He's not like a producer in like the 2026, whatever year we're in, like meaning of the word. But I think like his understanding of his role and the role of like being social and whatever within art, and like making people comfortable enough, making an artist comfortable enough to bring out their best product. That's something I've always really held really close, and I will forever. I'll never ever forget that. So he's not a musician, but I look up to him immensely within music. Um, I'd say outside of that, I mean, I could start just like listing my favorite artists, but it would go on forever. I don't really have it. It's too that's the hardest question. Like picking my favorite artist. I mean, I could glaze a million people. I
Mhm.
could say Laundry Day too. Like honestly, truly, truly, truly. Like the being able to the artists that have been around the most, especially in like creative context, actually end up being my favorite because of what I said before, where it's like I'm in love with this process. And being able to see the process behind this music makes me respect and value and look up to these people all the more. So the last two spots in my top four artist list go to every artist I've ever worked with in a creative capacity, because I've like a crazy new level of respect for them watching their process.
Okay, if you could collaborate with any artist living or dead, who would it be and why?
Pink Panthers, because I'm obsessed with her. No, jokes aside, um, I do. I'll just go with that fast answer. Pink Panthers. I think she's super super talented. I think she's captured something in her music that I really would love to capture one day, which is she's super knowledgeable about everything that's going on in her music. She produces a lot of her own stuff. She's so knowledgeable of the the genres that she exists within and the references that she's pulling from. So that super, 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 I look up to that. But also, she's captured a funness in her pop music while also not really compromising the art, which I think is like really, really special. It's extremely, extremely uncommon that that happens, in my opinion. Like I'm a lover of pop music. I think like the audience reception of music, especially, is just like one of the most important things to me. And so pop music is like the biggest one for that. But I often find that like pop music artists I watch them do it. I see them. I'm in the room. They're compromising their artistic vision. Pink Panther is someone who I've seen somewhat. I've seen her like work process from being in the studio and whatever, and she captures the fun, and she's not compromising her art, but she's also making pop music that's able to connect with millions and millions of people, and that's super special, very unique.
She just got announced to be in Outside Lands, and I can't wait to buy day tickets.
Where's Outside Lands?
San Francisco.
That's okay, fire. Might have to pull through for that.
Okay, what is your dream venue or festival to either perform at or work in?
Coachella.
Coachella.
Not even like anything, it's really just like the name of it all. Like there's, how like I sort of think of Coachella in the same vein as like the Hollywood sign. It's just like it's not a relic, but it's like it's so like, you know what I mean? When you think of festivals, it's like one of the first ones, and it's kind of the festival. You know, it's like
Mhm.
it's yeah. I mean, it's enough said. I couldn't say anything about Coachella that hasn't been said before. Um, Also, just like randomly, kind of from what I've seen in the past few years, it's actually really, really hard to get on Coachella. It's not as simple as just being like an artist or whatever. There's like weird rules too, where you can't play it 3 years in a row. You can't play it 2 years in a row. You have to like have a cool down period after you play it. Like so, like all of that kind of like I'm like, ooh, that sounds like impossible to do. I really want to. Um, so yeah, just to be able to say I could, in the same way that like a Grammy. You know what I mean? It's sort of like I mean, I'm not saying that this is your question, but it's almost like if you were to ask me like what award would I want to win in music? It's like there's a bunch of them, but it's like well, Grammy.
Mhm.
Grammy. That's what I want to win. Right? Like they have I forget what the other, there's other music awards. I can't even think of any off the top of my head, but I know there's tons because I watch them on the TV all the time. And that's really my answer. I mean, Coachella is the Grammys of festivals. Just has that name.
Okay, who's your dream person to open for?
Um, I'll be honest, I'm doing it right now. The band I'm working for, The Help, is a very, very big influence into my musical. Like they're one of my biggest musical influences.
Mhm.
Um, but it's also something that like I had sort of set my mind on like meeting them and being around this project for a really long time
Mhm.
and kind of randomly happened into it. But I have a better answer. Who's my dream artist to open for? I would say this is like an abstract thing, but I, as a fan of music, have always been obsessed when like the opening artist and the main artist have a song together, and the main artist will come out during the opening artist set. Like I love that. So that would honestly be one of my dreams is to like a first collaborate with an artist on a song that's that's sick, and then open for that artist and like be able to do a shared performance.
Okay, that's it. But
Hell yeah! All
yeah,
right,
thank
I'm
you
glad.